mysterious being has appeared in homes across America.
32X. Redouble his power.
Go! Just stick it in your Genesis.
Alright, baby.
Can we see that again?
32X.
Let's go!
Increase the power of the unit. Increase the power of the unit 40 times.
Hey man, your set was stolen. Dig out! Dig out!
Sega had a storied history as it competed with Nintendo back in the day. The one thing Genesis had that NES didn't have was a strange-looking add-on called the 32X. Today's topic is going to be about the Sega 32X, the add-on with wasted potential. The year is 1993, and by this time Sega was falling behind with their rivals and being overtaken by the likes of Neo Geo, Atari Jaguar, and the Philips 3DO. Yes, Sega had the Mega CD as an add-on, but it still wasn't doing good in sales, so Sega needed something to jumpstart and catch them up in sales. So in January of 1994, during the Winter Consumer Electronics Show, Joe Miller, the head of research and development of Sega of America, got a phone call from the CEO of Sega itself, stressing the importance of coming up with an answer to the Atari Jaguar. One of the ideas that came up was Project Jupiter, which is going to be an upgraded Genesis with an upgraded color palette and lower price, as well as some 3D capabilities due to the Sega Virtual Processor chip. However, Miller had a better idea, stating that if all you wanted to do was to enhance the Genesis, then why not come up with an add-on instead of a whole new console? That way consumers wouldn't have to ditch the Genesis altogether just to play 32-bit games. Thus, Project Jupiter was scrapped and the new add-on, codenamed Project Mars, was started. The 32X was designed to be a peripheral that can be used with a Genesis, and it would expand the power of the Genesis to 32-bit Super H2 processors and a lower clock speed than the Saturn. Although the Saturn was going to be more powerful, but the 32X was not going to be compatible with the Saturn, and Sega justified this by running both at the same time, stating that the 32X was going to be for those who couldn't afford the Saturn. In other words, it was a poor man's Saturn. Before the 32X was launched, initial reception for the 32X and games was positive, with scores from Electronic Gaming Monthly being 8, 7, and 8, with an overall out of 8 out of 10 in their 1995 buyer's guide. But they were questioning how long the Genesis would support it. And GamePro commented that the cords and inputs that the 32X had was as complicated as trying to set up your VCR, and it had some performance glitches such as freezing and overheating. However, in 1995, feedback for the 32X soon soured, with reviews giving it a 2 out of 10, stating that the game library and Sega's abandonment of it were in favor of the Saturn. Despite the lower price, Sega had a difficult time convincing third-party developers to make games for the 32X, with top developers aware of the upcoming Saturn, as well as the PlayStation and Nintendo 64. And though the 32X wouldn't even be capable of even competing with those systems, plus with the quick development time, most developers didn't want to make games for what they called a technological dead end. However, Sega made games in-house, were just shoved in a box and shipped, and barely even showed off the potential of the 32X. By 1996, Sega had told all those developing 32X games to abandon them and start making games for the Saturn instead, which caused even more of a price decrease in the States, as stores were littered with unsold units to the point that some stores were selling them for as low as $19.95. Sega soon was going to redeem themselves with the Neptune. However, by the time the prototype port was done, the Saturn was due to be released in the States, and releasing the Neptune would be unprofitable. And add to another nail in the coffin for the 32X was the fact that there were 6 games that came out that used both the Sega CD and the 32X, and sadly, with a number of Sega consoles out at the time, consumers were confused as to what would work with what. The final nail in the coffin for the 32X came in October of 1995, when Sega had demanded that all 32X projects be discontinued and they were to focus all projects for the Saturn instead. However, all 32X technology would soon be recycled in the Sega Picture Magic. Soon the 32X would soon be a major sore spot for Sega, which was soon followed by the Saturn, which failed to compete with the Sony PlayStation and the Nintendo 64. and which caused Sega to give up on making any more consoles altogether in 1995, and deemed the 32X becoming the worst planned console release of all time. Now at this point, I would go into some of the games for the 32X, but for the life of me, I never knew anyone that had one. And by this time as well, most of the people were buying the newer consoles that Sony and Nintendo had released. So with that, I'm going to say my final thoughts on this. The 32X was indeed one of the worst ideas Sega had ever come out with, and it showed, with games that barely even used the add-on's full potential at all, and the initial cost of owning one at the time was so high. Yes, as the years went on, the price dropped considerably, which to me is a big indication of a short lifespan of it. If you ever had one of these 32Xs back in the day, let me know in the comments down below. I'm Paul saying peace out and stay frosty.